We were all born with the innate power of knowing and wisdom within us. The challenge for many of us is that we were taught to seek answers externally instead of searching from within. And this is the reason why so many of us find ourselves going around in circles, searching for new ways, but could never find the way. The womanly way. It's not the way. It's not my way. But it is a pathway to support all of us returning back to self, reconnect with our inner wisdom through loving ourselves, knowing ourselves, and reconnecting with ourselves.
Tell me and be honest. Tell me, should I've known?
So we can start to find our own way as modern day women. Are you interested? Well, sit back, relax, and welcome to this amazing journey. Hello, I am Lala Angela Wang, your host for the Womanly Way podcast. Welcome to this episode of the podcast. Today is the eve of George's first birthday, and I was just reflecting back on this day a year ago. I was getting ready for bed already. I was like, no, I have to come and share the story because I don't believe many people has actually heard the 24 hours leading up to George's birth, which is actually a really interesting story, and it might have made history in for the company that I work for. Anyway, it's a construction company. I think it definitely made history. So here we go. On the 10th of March, 2022, to me, it was not an ordinary day. I spent majority of my pregnant time basically working from home. I was very fortunate that I was allowed to work from home for most of that time, and it worked out okay. And this time last year, it was a very special day because generally I'm the person in our division that runs what we call the design kickoff meeting. Privately, we also call it a kumbaya meeting. I think George must know that I'm talking about him. We just had a notification to say that he's crying. And thank goodness I've got Scott, who's looking after George for me while I jump on this live. Where was I? Yes, so generally I'm the person that runs these, what we call design kickoff meetings with the client at the beginning of each project. And the reason it's called a kumbaya meeting is because, essentially we sit down. It's a team bonding meeting where we talk about common goals for the project as well as who we are as individuals. So we all get to know each other better. So it's a face-to-face meeting. I try to run these face-to-face because it needed to be done face-to-face to have that connection, right? I know there's a lot of things that we could do digitally, but there's nothing beats the connection that you can build with somebody when you look at them in the eyes, not through a screen, and you're able to, share some food with them, actually work with them physically in the physical realm. So it was a face-to-face meeting, and I was actually excited because this is one of those things that I love doing. But it's also the first time I got to meet this entire team before I go on to maternity leave. It was one of those, your last official duty before I get ready for giving birth to baby George. When I first found out that I was pregnant, I never intended to have a day. I was like, okay, my due date was the 4th of April. I'm just going to work until the 4th of April. In my mind, it was like either he's going to come early or he's going to come late. So he'll never come on a day. And, working from home to me, is no different than sitting at home and wait for George to come out, right? So in my mind, I was always going to work until the last day. Little did I know, I literally worked till my last day, right? So I went to this meeting, and my client saw me. It was really interesting because I was quite big at 36 week ready. And she saw me. She's like, "You're pregnant." I'm like, "Yes." Because obviously we've been communicating through Zoom this whole time, and all she saw was the top bit of me. And if you've never seen me before I got pregnant, you would never know that I was pregnant during my pregnancy, right? Um, so she saw me and she's like, "You're pregnant." And I'm like, "Yes, I'm pregnant." And she's like, "You're very pregnant." I'm like, "Yes." And she's like, "When are you due?" I'm like, "In about a month's time." And all of my consultants saw me and none of them knew that I was pregnant. So it was really funny. So we sat down, we had the meeting, and around 3 o'clock, we had our toilet breaks. I went to the bathroom and my water broke. Well, actually, I went to the bathroom to pee. My pee never stopped, and I knew then that my water broke. I had this big poofy skirt on. I was just like, you know what? I'll be fine. There's no contraction. In theory, sometimes you don't deliver your baby until quite a while after your water break. So I'll be fine. I went back to the meeting. I didn't tell anybody because I didn't want anybody to panic, right? I went back. I sat down. I finished the meeting at 4 o'clock. And I stood up. I said goodbye to everybody, still without telling anyone but our receptionist, because I want to check. Funny thing, right? I want to check that the chair that I was sitting on didn't have any of my stuff on it. And it was fine. It was clean. So Richard and Jamie, you'd be glad to know that I did not contaminate any of the chairs because I had a big poofy skirt on and it literally absorbed all the things. So I told the receptionist and she's like, "Oh, do you need to tell anybody?" I'm like, no. They're probably all going to panic attack, so don't. I'll go home and then we'll get it sorted. I drove to work that day. And so as I was hopping in the car, I rang Scott and I said, "Babe, so don't stress out, okay? Don't panic." And he's like, "What's going on? You don't normally start a phone conversation like that." I said, My water broke. I'm fine. You can still go to work, I think." He's like, "Are you sure?" Because he had an overnight shift, 12-hour overnight shift. He's like, "You sure I can cancel it if I have to?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll be fine. I just need to come home, pack my hospital bag, and we'll see how we go." I still have no contraction. And so it happened. I went home, I packed my hospital bag, and it was about 5 o'clock then. And I said to Scott, "Look, you probably want to, if you can go to the pharmacy and get me some stuff." And I also said to him, "I think it's probably best if you don't go to work today, if that's okay." And then I also rang the hospital at the same time. So Scott went to the pharmacy and got me some of the stuff that I needed. I rang the hospital and like, "You need to come in right now." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And it was really funny because I spoke to them, I told them what happened, and they're like, "You're really calm for someone whose water has broken." I'm just like, "Oh, I didn't, I don't think it's too much of an issue. I'm feeling fine. I don't have contraction just yet. I might have like tiny little bit of contraction, but it's nothing that I can't, handle." They're like, "No, you need to come in right now because you're early." So we went in. They even packed us dinner. That was really nice. Went into a room, got ourselves all set up. It was all good. And then the contraction came at around 8 o'clock. I was fine. It got worse really quickly. But I was only 5 centimeters then. I probably was only 3. And it got so bad that the nurses were concerned about me because I keep bouncing on a ball to relieve. They're like, "Well, if you haven't, if you keep doing this, you're going to be doing this all night. You're going to be so tired by the time you're ready to deliver." I'm like, "Don't do it." So they're like, "Epidural?" I'm like, "No, I want to do it naturally." I wanted to do water birth as well. And they're like, "No, you can't because you're early." I'll talk about birth plans after this, but after me giving birth to George, I have a complete different perspective about birth plans. So I'll tell you guys about it later on. So come 9 o'clock, they're like, "Last chance to get your epidural," because what's the special name for the specialist that give you epidural? I can't remember. Anyway, so the doctor's coming for another lady who is also in labor. And if you don't do it now, you're going to have to wait all the way till the morning. You're going to have to go through the pain all the night. And I was like, oh my God, no. Okay, fine. Give me the epidural, right? And pretty much the rest was kind of boring, the usual birth delivery stuff. But we ended up having a good night's sleep, got up in the morning. I was still 5 centimeters. And this is when, finally it clicked. I did hypnobirthing course online to understand what hypnobirthing was. But I really have to say that the course that I did, either that I wasn't really concentrating, I didn't finish the whole thing because I still had a month to go, right? Or that I just didn't quite click. It took me until they said to me, you need to do something about it, right? Because come 10 o'clock, I was still 5 centimeters. And you need to do something about it, meditate, whatever you need to do. And the moment I said meditate, I was like, oh. So I really started to close my eyes and do all the hypnobirthing stuff. They tell you to imagine, it's a lotus flower and you're opening up. And that really helped me. But at the same time, in my mind, I was like, Georgie, you clever boy. Because on the 11th of March last year, it was actually my Chinese birthday. And us Chinese people will count a year ahead. So it was actually my 40th Chinese birthday last year. 40th. And, if I gave birth to George on the 10th, he would have been a day earlier than my Chinese birthday. So I really, truly believe that George chose to not only be birthed on my 40th Chinese birthday, but also be birthed about half an hour earlier than my birth time. So I was born 9:44 a.m. in Taiwan. Daylight saving time taking into consideration, Sydney is about 3 hours earlier. So that would have been 12:44 Sydney time. George was born on at 12:08 Sydney time. So practically, we are pretty much, according to the Chinese way of calculation, 40 years apart. Exactly, pretty much, right? And so that worked. And I had to push. And it was hard to push because I had all the drugs in me. And, I didn't plan to push that way either. I had a birth plan in place. But it just didn't happen. In the end, they had to do suction on George because I couldn't push hard enough. Luckily, his head didn't get affected too much. And when George finally came out, because he was premature, he didn't know how to feed himself. Babies naturally have this instinct to find mom's breast and start feeding themselves after birth. George didn't. George just wanted to sleep. So it was quite a battle to get him to feed at the beginning. They had to give him sugar, not sugar, but I can't remember the exact term. So they have to give him glucose to keep him going, or sugar, whatever they call it. And at one stage, they were looking at putting a tube down him to feed him because he wasn't eating. And as his mama, I was like, no. Oh, it still breaks my heart thinking about it. No, we're not putting tube down George. He's a healthy baby. He doesn't need it. So it was a lot of prayers and a lot of talking to him as this 1-day-old baby, and just keep saying to him, Georgie, you have to eat. Because if you don't, they're going to put the tube on you and it's not going to be comfortable. And I think this is when I really realized the magic of how as moms we can communicate with our babies, and they truly understand it, right? From being in the womb, they understand it, to after they're born. As soon as they're born, they understand that you just need to talk to them mums and buds will have this unique way of connecting, and it will surprise you how much they understand. So this is one of those things that I'll remember forever, that, from a little baby who doesn't know how to suck on bottles, it was such a battle that first 5 days. We tried so hard, because if he didn't eat enough, if he didn't put on enough weight, we will have to be in the hospital for even longer. So every day is that communication. And even when he finally got out of hospital, we were on a mission. I remember going to see the community nurses a week after we got out of hospital. They're like, you have to try and put some weight on him, because otherwise he's going back to the hospital. Because George wasn't putting on enough weight as a newborn baby. And I just remember switching on that competitiveness in me and go, all right, Georgie, we're doing this, and just really feeding him. And my proudest moment is 10 days later, we've gone back, and so George was 10 days later, a week too. So roughly about 3 or 4 weeks old, about a month old. George not only exceeded his birth weight, not only put on weight, but he was now too heavy, or he put on weight too quickly, which was really funny, right? Community nurses, they've got a funny way of dealing with babies and encouraging mum to be the best version that we can. So this is George's birth story. It's one that I will forever remember, because I just didn't know what I was doing. But because I didn't know what I was doing, that naiveness has, I believe, in so many ways helped me and served me really well. It allowed me to stay calm and just be the best mama that I could be in that delivery room. And coming back to birth plans, I had a plan. But unfortunately, my entire plan had to go out the window, just because of the different situations that played out throughout the birth journey. So I guess if I could offer any advice to first-time mums with a birth plan, is that you always have a plan, but you always know that there's a possibility that you won't get to execute your plan. But the good thing about having a plan is at least you know where you're heading, and give yourself some options as well, allowing the options and flexibilities at birth, so then you don't feel stressed when, your entire plan don't get to be carried out. So I just thought, on the eve of George's first birthday, I wanted to record this. One, that it's something fun to share, because number one, I work in the construction industry, and how often you get a woman in the construction industry literally worked on the last day and her water literally breaks during a meeting, right? Actually, one other funny thing, I rang my manager at 8:00 that night, and he's like, funny that I was sitting right next to you thinking she looked really big and ready to be delivered. What am I going to do when her water really breaks? Like, we're going to need to find some towels. We're going to need to send her to the hospital. And because he experienced it himself, he knows the processes. And so I said to him, so you jinxed it. Oh, it's just a funny joke. But yeah, I really want to record this because it's a fun story to share. But more so, I want to record it for myself and for George, for just to have something that we will remember, in case I suffer from Alzheimer. When I'm old, I want my kids to remember this, and I want my grandkids to remember this, because to me, it's a special moment. Whether it's a special moment for them or not, I think my job is to record it, and then they can do whatever they desire with it. So I hope this episode has provided you with some entertainment value, perhaps for the mums to be, just another aspect of a different experience. And really, It doesn't matter what happens, I believe, as long as you stay calm, everything will be okay. Everything will be okay. Birth journeys are birth journeys. We just need to allow it to happen. But as long as you as a mom stays calm, everything will be okay. Well, that's me for tonight. I'm gonna go and join George and Scott and have a sleep. It's been a long day, and I will see you guys next time. Love you all. Bye. I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Womanly Way. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this podcast if you feel aligned to do so. Or check out our post-show discussions on my Instagram page @The Womanly Way. See you next time.